Hey guys, how y'all doing? I'm here to give you guys a recap on the new chapters of Nanatsu no Taizai, or you could call it the Seven Deadly Sins, on chapters 267 and 268. Yes, I'm pretty sure those of you guys who's been keeping up with Nanatsu no Taizai, you will realize that this was a double chapter this week. And I'm very happy to see to it that I managed to read the chapters before I possibly go to the gym, even though it's a little bit late afternoon here and there for me. So if anything else, let's just get this started, okay? Okay, let's start with chapter 267, and this right here is really is somewhat emotional and pretty crazy. So if anything else, let's go. We have to it that Estarossa was actually strangling the life out of Elizabeth, but we all know that's not Estarossa. I'm pretty sure it's the freaking commandment that's making Estarossa go crazy. Aside from that, Elizabeth goes like she can't die here until she sees Meliodas once more. And it was a color page along with other color pages of Bond and Meliodas, which is pretty cool. And we see to it that Elizabeth ends up hitting Estarossa with her powerful light attack, and he ends up being knocked aside. And Elizabeth realizes that this place was actually the remains of the Heavens Theater. And we see to it that Elizabeth says that, as it was such an old place, no one never ever came near it, and this is a secret spot where I would meet Meliodas so many times. And Elizabeth even says how much I long for you and I want to see you. And we have to it, I think Estarossa was saying, I remember I was always watching, you know? And we see to it that Hauser says, we'll keep fighting the Demon Clan like this and continue making our way south. We'll leave the rest of you to defeat Estarossa and save Elizabeth and do whatever you take to bring her back. And therefore, King says, I promise I'll do everything I can, along with Sariel and Tarmiel. And we see to it that, Diane asks King, are you sure you guys will be okay with just the three of you? And King's like, no need to worry. But we have to it that someone says, it's going to be the four of us. And Daria says, let me come along with you. And they go like, 1 to 10 commandments? Are you crazy? Even Sario's like, I understand you want to help Elizabeth, but no one here even wants to freaking trust you. Not to mention, there's nothing in it for you. And we have to it that Deathpeter goes like, what kind of an idiot would bring a commandment like you who killed along to kill their fellow commandment? That's stupid. Even Sario goes like, I can't say no one trusts you. But King explains to everyone, wrong, I trust her. And we have to it that he says, or to be more accurate, I trust Elizabeth, who once risked her life to protect you two. Even Daria's like, how the hell do you know about that? And King's like, well, we're up against Estarossa anyway, a monster beyond any normal scale. We're gonna need as much help as we can get. And even Sario goes like, I'd heard the Seven Deadly Sins was a bunch of weirdos, but I guess it's actually true, isn't it? And we see to it that King, Sario, Tamio, and Daria flies to find Elizabeth or go to a possible location. And Estarossa explains to Elizabeth, back to them right now, that he's always been watching her, and says and we have to it that Elizabeth explains to Estarossa that she remembers him too, and says, you were always alone, a sad, lonely expression, etc. And we have to it that Estarossa explains to Elizabeth, the Demon King's son who possessed no power of darkness, a weakling unable to kill a single insect. I was laughed behind my back. I was dissed on. No one even respected me. They freaking saw me as nothing more than pure good for nothingness, Then Estarossa explains that the only two people who did not laugh at me were you and my older brother. I'm not sure when, but at some point you caught my eye and my gaze will follow you wherever you went. But the only thing your gaze ever fixed on was Meliodas himself. And we have to it that Elizabeth asked Estarossa, please, help me stop Meliodas from becoming the Demon King. And we have to it that Estarossa goes like, even at times like this, you still worried about my brother? I'm sure my brother would have been able to harness the power of the commandments on his own without difficulty. Meliodas is strong, haughty, and reliable. Anyone wouldn't think twice about trusting him, so full of confidence. Elizabeth can only listen to Estarossa's speech about this, and he says, and more importantly, he always protected me, never abandoned me. Whatever troubles or worries you could tell me anything he said. And Estarossa goes like, that's right. That's why I confided in him about my feelings for you. And here's what he said. even right now, back then, we have to it that Meliodas actually told Estarossa, I'll try to work things out for you between you and Elizabeth, okay? And we have to it that Elizabeth goes like, Meliodas would never say something like that. I'm sure your memory is mistaken. And we have to it that, like, Estarossa explained that he did. He lied. And we have to it that Elizabeth goes like, what's happening to you? And we have to it that Estarossa gets upset that Meliodas lied to me. And this is really, really messed up right here because it makes me feel doubtful about Meliodas himself, And I'll get to that just a second after I've done my recap for chapter 267. And we see to it that Estarossa is like being consumed by darkness and say he even lied to me right now. And we see to it that that Elizabeth realizes that the 3 commandments that he absorbed is actually rejecting him. And we have to it that someone says help, that something is actually hearing. Someone is actually like talking to Elizabeth in her mind. It says, help, Elizabeth, help, Nisan, help. And we have to it that like Elizabeth tells Estarossa, you gotta vomit out those commandments right now. Cough them up. Focus, maintain your consciousness. Otherwise, you'll be swallowed up by the commandments. And we have to it that the darkness of the commandments ends up grabbing Elizabeth. And we have to it that Estarossa screams out Elizabeth and says, if you're goal is going to be stolen away by Meliodas, be eaten by me instead, and then you'll become mine. And we have to it that he laughs in total insanity, and we see to it that that we go back to Camelot Castle right now, and there's a giant freaking black ball of darkness or something, and we have to it that someone's inside the castle with Cusack and Zeldris. As usual, Cusack asks Zeldris, how's Meliodas doing? And we have to it that Zeldris explained, as expected of him, he's rather impressive. But Zeldris explains that it's taking time, explains to Cusack that it's taking time, but you know what? He's absorbing the commandments without any kind of rejection or adverse reactions at all. We need to hurry and gather the remaining commandments to give it to him. And we see to it that there's a cocoon that Cusack and Zeldris are staring at, and that's where Meliodas is right now. Even Elizabeth is crying right now and says, Meliodas, I really miss you right now. And we see to it that Meliodas, who is apparently trying to absorb the commandments, is inside the freaking darkness or something. So it's pretty messed up for Estarossa right now, especially when the commandments are rejecting him. Not to mention when Meliodas actually told Estarossa, I'll try and work things out for you between you and Elizabeth, okay? Well, that's kind of messed up because he lied to maybe protect his brother, but makes me realize, do you think freaking Meliodas, who's back to his ruthless self or something, his old self as the most vile demon, will ever keep his promises to Zeldris or something? It's kind of messed up, dude. It really is. But aside from that, the commandments are pretty much rejecting Estarossa really, really badly and causing major, major pain to him. But I think he was actually calling for help for Elizabeth and his brother and his father for help before he was being controlled by the commandments or possibly killed by being consumed by them. Because in this, like I said, in this chapter about Estarossa confining his feelings, how much he loved Elizabeth and just had his gaze on her, but Elizabeth had her gaze on Meliodas instead. So I just go wow, dude, now that is just really sad, unrequited love, So yeah, that's about chapter 267. Now we're going to chapter 268. And freaking finally, dude, it's been so freaking long that I haven't seen the guy. How many months has it been? So if anything else, let's just get this started. We have to it that there's a shadow-like wolf figure standing on top of the purgatory, and it says, a lone wolf seeks a companion. And we see to it that in the purgatory that there's a wolf fighting many powerful monsters right now, but we have to it that wolf is actually freaking Ban. He ends up having to sing a song back in his days, and how he remembers Elaine. And we see Ban transform back to a human and says, what the hell am I doing? And we have to it that Bond explains that that was no joke. A little bit longer, and I would have become a full-fledged resident of the site. Just how many decades, no centuries have passed since I came into purgatory. Because we have to remember this, okay? Merlin explained that the purgatory is like its time length in there is very, very fast compared to any other timeline. And because Bond is actually immortal, he's able to like withstand it for the time being. But we have to it that Bond is still coughing up blood and he's still in injury because the purgatory is a totally different place out here. And we had to it that like Bond was talking to himself like saying, you better watch out because it'll freeze you solid, burn you to a crisp, spoil you like a carrion. The suffering of the purgatory will gnaw away at your soul, will chew a hole through your heart, will tear you apart. And once you fall into despair, into the very end, you'll turn to a monster doomed to wander purgatory. Listen up, Bond. Don't you dare complain. Don't you dare tap out. No matter what it takes, find the captain's emotions and get the hell on back. And we had to it that, like, Bond is still looking for the emotions of his best friend, Meliodas. And we see to it that, that Bond ends up falling down, getting hurt, you know. Oh my gosh, dude. The only thing that still keeps him alive is his powerful immortality. And he goes like, Sancho, where the hell are you? And we had to it that something was attacking him, you know, which is really hilarious. And we see to it that, like, something tells him, give it up. And we have to it that he says, like hell I will. And he ends up fighting this weird old dino thing that ends up picking a fight with him. And we have to it that Bond ends up fighting him, you know, and Bond gets blasted by some kind of flame whatsoever by this, like, funny dino thing, and we have to it that Bond's like, you want a piece of me that badly? Let's dance. And we have to it that Bond's freaking, like, mustache and long hair is disappeared back to normal, you know? And we see to it that they end up hitting each other very badly, etc. And we see to it that, like, he goes like, man, you are one hell of a tough guy, you know that? Sorry, I almost cussed right there. Even though I cuss a lot in my mini videos, I'm trying to keep it PG rated as best as I can. But aside from that, we have to it that Bond talks to the creature by saying, we must have been fighting for decades, you know? I'm in the middle of searching my friend right now. And he ends up saying that he's really sleepy. All of a sudden, the creature cuddled up to him and he goes like, what? You grow attached to me now? And we had to it that Bond goes like, come on, Captain. Let's go home already, okay? Back on the other side, everyone's holding the best out for you. And he even says like, besides, there's a woman precious to me that I'm dying to see again. As he ends up sleeping. But we have to it that thing says, yeah, me too. And he ends up, but all of a sudden that dino ends up dispersing right now. And all of a sudden, Meliodas goes like, where's that dragon? Meliodas was actually right there next to Bond, who was actually fighting him. And we see to it that Bond realizes that all this time, this is where Meliodas has been. And even Meliodas goes like, Elizabeth, I want to see you. It ends up there. So, in chapter 268, Bond, in simple words, was just wandering in the purgatory and ends up finding a dragon-like creature, and he ends up fighting him. But eventually that dragon-like creature who he has been fighting the entire time was actually Meliodas' emotions. And next chapter is called Purgatory Life. So I don't know what's really bound to happen, but I look forward to see the bond between Bond and Meliodas once again. So let's go back to chapter 267. Okay, this chapter right here is just Elizabeth and Esterosa talking to each other and bonding for a bit while King Dariet, Sario, and Tamio decide to go rescue Elizabeth. And we get to know more about Esterosa, you know? Like, we all know that he was born without darkness and he was dissed on by everybody with the exception of his brother and Elizabeth. And later on, Esterosa confesses that he fell in love with Elizabeth and was following her everywhere, wherever his eyes could see her. But we also see to it that that he even told his feelings for Elizabeth to Meliodas, and Meliodas explains to Esterosa that I'll try to work things out for you, but I believe that was actually a lie, which is really, really sad, I believe. And we see to it that Esterosa, of course, in chapter 267, is being consumed or being destroyed by the commandments. Like, 3 of them is already rejecting him, etc., which is really sad. And we have to it that, of course, Meliodas, who's apparently trying to absorb the commandments here and there, is almost complete without rejection, etc. As for 268, chapter 268, like I said, Bond is wandering in the purgatory, almost got consumed as a resident, ends up fighting a dragon shadow-like creature, but ends up realizing all this time he's been fighting the emotions of Meliodas, which is a very good thing, you know? Because Bond is now reunited with Meliodas' emotions, etc. The next chapter would be Purgatory Life. This chapter right here was really tense though, really crazy. I'm looking forward to like the next chapter about Purgatory Life. So until then, I'll see you guys in my next video. So I'm Alpha Zero, people. Have a good day, and I'll see you guys next time. All right, peace out. Bye bye.